I can't look at this game, especially the Warriors' most important players, and say that this is something that's going to take a hit to their confidence. It's not a great result, but I don't think it's something that's going to shatter this team and necessarily give any more life to Houston than they already would have had by being a team that's 22 games over 500.
The Warriors lose this game. They're headed back home for Game 6. This was an ugly performance, essentially right from the tip-off.
Yeah, they came out flat. They came out disinterested. I thought they came out without much effort, at least compared to, obviously, Games 3 and Game 4. Yeah. I thought they came out like a team that, and this is, I think, also what happens a lot where, look, the Rockets are a 2 seed for a reason. They are a good basketball team.
No doubt.
They were playing for their postseason lives, and despite some of the pregame comments from Udoka about throwing guys in for experience, they were going to come out swinging. And that's absolutely what they did. And I thought the Warriors, specifically on the defensive end, played kind of lazy at the beginning of this game. They came out, they shot a lot of threes early. I thought they had a bunch of poor take fouls, and a few other fouls didn't go their way, which put Houston at the line with, like 7 or 6 minutes left in the first quarter. And they pretty much rolled over from the jump. And it is reminiscent of Game 5 in the 2022 Western Conference semis of the Memphis Grizzlies, who blasted the Warriors, and they put pressure on themselves now to go back to San Francisco and win Game 6. So, the way that they came out in this game was absolutely tough to watch, and I think the majority of this game followed. Houston scored 40 points in the first quarter. They didn't have more than 32 in any other quarter in this series.
Yeah, there are games where they're not even breaking 90, and they score 40 in a single quarter in this one. It was rough from the very beginning. I guess maybe not the very, very beginning. It was actually 8-5 Warriors, like a minute and a half in. And then the rest of the way, it was really ugly. Houston immediately responded with a 15-0 run. You mentioned fouls. That was a big issue. The Warriors put Houston in the bonus with 7:44 left in the first quarter. Houston in the first quarter ultimately gets up. How many free throws in that first quarter? They got 13 in the first quarter. They ultimately get to the line 38 times. I thought the first quarter was just like nightmare. Everything that the Warriors need to do well, they did poorly. And you look at a couple of key categories, a few key areas. You can't turn the ball over. You can't allow your opponents to get to the free throw line with fouls, and you've got to make your open shots. In the first quarter, the Warriors committed 5 turnovers, on pace for 20. They ultimately turned the ball over 14 times, but 5 in the first quarter turned into 7 Houston points off of turnovers. You committed 9 personal fouls, which led to, as you mentioned, 13 first quarter free throws, all makes by Houston, and then you went just 9 for 22 from the field, including 6 for 16 from deep, which means you were 3 for 6 from 2 in the first quarter, but you missed a number of open three-pointers in that first quarter. If you're turning the ball over, if you're fouling, and you're missing your open shots, it's a recipe for disaster, specifically for this Warrior team.
Yeah, look, I think that everyone from top to bottom deserves blame for this game. Outside of maybe, ironically, the last 2 or 3 guys on the bench, because those are the guys that played with the most heart, I felt like, in this game. You look at Kevin Knox, Trace Jackson-Davis, Pat Spencer, Moses Moody, play with a lot of heart. The second unit was the brightest spot in this game for Golden State. And the Warriors, going into half, their best 3 players were awful. And really all of their starters were awful in this game. There was a point where, I think it was after the first quarter, the Warriors bench had outscored the starting unit 18-6.
Yep.
So Curry obviously didn't have it going. Jimmy Butler, clearly, I don't think they approached this game like a must-win. Game 6, we'll see. But honestly, the guy kind of at the center of it for me, Mark, was Draymond Green. And not to say that he's the reason why they lost the game, but I was walking back from getting some food when you guys had turned the game on, and I was just watching on my phone. And I don't know how you felt, but in the first 90 seconds of the game, because to me, where the Warriors have beaten Houston 3 times out of the first 4 has been primarily with their defense. And none more on display than the final possession of Game 4 when Draymond Green stopped Şengün to force that rebound and eventually ice that game. Draymond is the guy that has to set the tone defensively for the Warriors, and he did not. While he had a quick layup on the first basket of the game, immediately after they get that first miss, Jalen Green comes down like a minute into the game, and Draymond, instead of trying to check him, just takes an easy take foul, and then on the ensuing possession, Green gets the ball in the corner, Draymond inexplicably closes out far too hard on a player that has not been able to hit a shot in this series. Green goes by him, gets an easy and one, and it starts from there. Then the Warriors begin to turn the ball over. I thought that Draymond Green played a pretty lazy opening couple of minutes in this game, and it was not all on him, but representative of the mindset that the Warriors clearly had at the beginning of this basketball game, which was, we're going to try and get through, push Houston as far as we could. It ended up being the bench that did that, but we're going to try and tax Houston in Game 5, go back to our crib, and get it done in 6. So I understand people might be a little bit mad about this performance, mad about the game in general, but this was one I thought you could see coming right from the jump.
Yeah, I mean, the energy, the effort, it was not there from the very beginning of this basketball game. Draymond did follow that play up, that sequence up that you're talking about with the made three, but making a three doesn't change what like the mindset was or what the energy was defensively. And you're right, the Warriors have won the first 3 of the first 4 games of this series generally with what they've done on defense, and that's at least where Draymond has had his biggest impact, where he always has his biggest impact, and there were some holes there early. But it, of course, wasn't just Draymond. Not that you're wrong. You're right. Draymond was not good, but neither was Steph. Neither was Jimmy Butler. I mean, Steph's first points came with 6 minutes to go in the second quarter. Jimmy Butler's first points at the free throw line, and he split the free throws. His first point came with 4.5 left in the second quarter. Those two dudes were scoreless in the first and didn't score for the majority of the second quarter either. And at that point, you're already feeling like the game might be kind of over. Like you're holding out hope, and Steve Kerr's already spoken post-game, and we had a halftime conversation, me and Draymond, and we decided we're going to play you for 5 minutes to open up the third quarter. If you make a run, you earn more minutes. If you don't, then we're pulling you in. You're not playing another second in this basketball game. That's how bad it was, even just at halftime. Like the 15-point final deficit, Evan, 131-116, does not do justice what happened on the court today in a bad way for the Warriors. I mean, this was a 31-point deficit at one point. There was really no moment beyond maybe the final couple of minutes of the first quarter where you felt like the Warriors really had an opportunity to win this basketball game, and it really was eerily reminiscent to what happened 2022 Western semifinals, Game 5 in Memphis. You lost that game by 39 points, I believe, down by as many as 55, so that one was a little bit worse than this, but it's the same thing that's going on in everybody's mind. And yeah, you do have the benefit of having Game 6 back at home, and that's probably why the Warriors maybe didn't feel comfortable, giving up on this game, but you know that you have that in your back pocket, but you're inviting an awful lot of pressure. I mean, now suddenly the only thing standing between you and a road Game 7 is a single game at home, and you feel good about your chances to win that game. But, I mean, the 2 games at home have been pretty darn close, and they could have gone either way. A couple of plays here and there, and if Houston just catches fire, Fred VanVleet goes off again, you could be looking at having to come back to Houston for Game 7. So, yeah, you can't substitute. You can't find... There's nothing like the real thing of having your back up against the wall like Houston did, but pretty soon the Warriors are going to be feeling that too.